Hello everyone, welcome to my history of the Marshall Islands. This is a really obscure country. Whenever I have obscure history videos, it's almost always a request. Anyways, before I begin, I have to give you a geography, geology, and terminology lesson. Let's begin. Let's start with a geography lesson. The Marshall Islands are located in the Pacific Ocean off of Australia and Papua New Guinea, and are located in the larger region of Micronesia, but Micronesia itself is part of Oceania, or Oceania, however you pronounce it. Now for the geology lesson. The Marshall Islands aren't islands, but are atolls, which are basically the eroded remains of a volcano's crater, or like the part where the lava would be. You get my point. When a volcano's center reaches the surface of the ocean, you get a full-on island, kind of like the ones you see in Hawaii. When the center and the crater's rim expose itself above the ocean's surface, you get a lagoon, kind of like my yacht. Never mind, no one's heard of that. And I kind of did the terminology lesson. Let's move on. Around 2000 BCE, the first people arrived in the Marshall Islands, the Micronesians. They are a people group today that consists of people from many ethnic groups inside of it. Today, they predominantly live in the countries of Palau, Nauru, the least visited country in the world, Kiribati, not Kiribati, and the Federated States of Micronesia, which itself is a country inside of the region of Micronesia. It all makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Just like Brazil, I am very sorry about this, but we really don't know anything about the early part of the history of the Marshall Islands. So, just like Brazil, I'm going to have to skip to the European arrival. I'm very sorry. I apologize to any bad things this caused anyone. I'm sorry if you're mad about this, but I can only skip to the 1500s when the Europeans arrived. So, once again, I'm sorry. Hope you understand. Let's move on. In 1526, Spanish explorer and priest Alonso de Salazar, Alonso? Really? Not Alfonso? Anyways, he arrived in the Marshall Islands. He named them, quote, Los Pintadosa, which means the painted ones in Spanish. He possibly named it after the natives he saw here. He unofficially made it part of the Spanish Empire until in 1821, it was transferred to the Captaincy General of the Philippines since the Spanish Empire fell. That's all I had for this part. In the 1830s, many American whaling ships passed through the Marshall Islands and did, guess what? Whaling. They didn't cause any trouble for the Spanish, who still hadn't claimed the islands yet, but the ship you see above is called the Andrew Hicks, I believe, and it had a few whaling issues because some other ships wanted to kill a whale or something. I'm not a whaling expert. Ask a whaling fanatic. Also at this time, the islands were named the Marshall Islands after the British explorer John Marshall, who had already been long dead. In 1824, Spain officially claimed the Marshall Islands for their own. They were the first European power to really care about them. I mean, who cares about some islands which are sometimes narrower than most people's driveways? Yeah, I'll address the elephant in the room later. In 1885, the Hispano-German Protocol of Rome was signed in, guess what? Rome. It was signed between Spain and the German Empire because they wanted to avoid war, and they were probably going to have one since Germany wanted a few islands, or atolls, in the Marshall Islands, which aren't islands. And so the German Empire got the atolls of Jalut and Ebon. During the start of World War I, Japan occupied the Marshall Islands, kicking out the Germans and whoever would have been living there, except for the natives. Anyways, Japan kept the Marshall Islands, until on January 31st, 1949, during the later half of World War II, the pesky Americans landed at the Kwajalein Atoll of the Marshall Islands, and by February 3rd of the same year, had kicked Japan out of the Marshall Islands. From 1946 to 1958, by the way, this is the first elephant in the room, the USA did some pretty cruel stuff to the Marshall Islands and tested the first hydrogen bombs in the Marshall Islands. On March 1st, 1954, the Castle Bravo bomb was set off in the now infamous Bikini Atoll, causing a nasty crater and a lot of radiation to spread throughout the area. It made hundreds of people get sick. Many of them didn't know what was happening to them, and around 15 people were killed. The Castle Bravo explosion's crater can still be seen in the circle I put on the map today. The Castle Bravo explosion was also the third largest bomb explosion ever. And now the second elephant in the room. The islands are sinking. If you remember from my History of Spain video, I said the islands are sinking in the outro, because they are. Just like many other Micronesian countries, including Tuvalu and Kiribati and the Federated States of Micronesia inside of the Micronesia area, they were built on extremely narrow and very low plots of land. Apart from the palm trees, most things are only a few feet above sea level. This has caused water levels to be very threatening. If sea levels rose maybe 5 feet, that's it. No more Marshall Islands. They'd be completely wiped off the map. Some people think that they are the last generation to live on the Marshall Islands today. This has been threatening the islands for decades, and I am not going to skip this because I don't sugarcoat everything. I hope that this will be taken care of, because it would be really sad to lose multiple countries because of us. On May 1st, 1979, the Marshall Islands kind of gained independence from the United States as they were able to get the U.S. to approve their constitution. They were never really occupied by the United States, not the kind you think of. In 1986, the Marshall Islands signed a compact of free association with the United States, giving them special rights with the U.S., including easier citizenship if they want to move to the U.S., especially because of those sinking islands, or it's a lot easier for them to join the U.S. military if they want. And with that is my history of the Marshall Islands. I know it was pretty depressing in the end, but I had to say it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm also going to be making an anthem video, which I'm going to upload either before or after this, whatever happens. So thank you all so much for watching. Halloween is coming up next, as well as a Halloween spooktacular, as I call it, where I'm going to have multiple songs I'm playing, including This Is Halloween. Thank you for watching.